It was a cold winter day. Surrender was continuous for 11 straight days at a level of consciousness that had never been reached previously, not even during psychoanalysis. It had to do with the ego's very basis of survival and its identification as an individual. It had to do with how we experience our own existence and the desire to experience our own beingness. As the days went by, the process seemed endless. A doubt surfaced. Was this attempting the impossible? It became clear that the purpose of that doubt itself was a defense mechanism. It was relinquished, and the surrender continued at great depth. Then, entering a restaurant on that cold, rainy Sunday afternoon, sitting down alone at the table, suddenly the world was miraculously transformed. A profound sense of inner stillness and peace occurred. It was greater than anything imaginable. The experience was beyond time. In fact, time had no meaning whatsoever, nor did space exist in the way in which we commonly experience it. All things were connected. There was only one life expressing itself with one self through all living things. There was no identification with the body and no interest in it. It was no longer any more interesting than any other body in the room. All emotions and events were interconnected, and all phenomena occurred because each thing was manifesting its own inner nature spontaneously, as though movement and growth were the spontaneous unfolding of potential. There was a rock-like quality to the imperturbable stillness. It was obvious that the real self was invisible, without beginning, without end, and that there had been only a transitory identification with the body and the story that went with the identification as an individual. It seemed very strange that one could previously have thought that one was an isolated body separate from others, with a limited beginning and a finite ending. The thought seemed absurd. There was no longer any feeling of a separate self, and the pronoun I disappeared and became meaningless. Instead, there was the awareness of being all things. It had always been and always would be. True beingness stood outside of time. The period of time that the body had been on earth seemed like a split second, during which the truth of timeless identity had been forgotten due to being blinded by the smaller self. Then, how it had happened revealed itself. There had been a wishful thought to experience separate existence, and this wishful thought had manifested itself as the individual person with an individual identity and a physical body to go with it. The interconnectedness of all things was starkly obvious. It was the holographic universe as described by the Buddha and by modern advanced theoretical physics, both of whom agree as to the intrinsic nature of the universe. Because everything was perfect, there was nothing to wish for, nothing to desire, nothing to create, and nothing to become. There was only that, the very essence of beingness out of which existence arises. That beingness is the source of existence, yet curiously, not its cause. There was a profound familiarity to the awareness. It was as though one had always known it, as if one were home at last. There were no emotions or feelings. There was an unawareness of sensations. Even though they seemed to go on, they were no longer personal or of concern. By way of experimentation, a thought was held for a split second to see what would happen. Almost instantly, there was an effect in the physical world. The thought of butter or coffee, for instance, resulted in the waiters coming over immediately with the items, and yet no word had been spoken. No words seemed necessary. Communication occurred with anyone on a level of silence. The body drove the car to a meeting that evening where no one noticed anything different. Everyone seemed to be intensely alive. Their aliveness shone forth from their beingness, and the self, which was the same for all, shone forth through their eyes. The body spoke to others, spontaneously carrying on normal conversations and behaving in its usual way. At the time, the body seemed like a karmic wind-up toy run by all of its accustomed patterns and programs, not needing any attention in the slightest. It seemed to know what to do and did it very effectively and effortlessly. All conversations and interactions were merely witnessed as phenomena, not directed. It seemed like a strange vanity to have once believed that there had been a small self as the author of the body's actions. In reality, the body was at the effect of the universe, and there had never been a doer of its actions. Phenomena were as vibrations of the mind that had no separate existence or reality. There was allness only. Only that oneness actually existed. The next afternoon a thought arose. Now that the way to reality had been revealed, there could be a return to the consciousness of being that individual person which had formerly been accepted as real. Just as the air in the room does not experience the contents of the room, there was no longer an I that experienced my own existence. In that space, there was no I to experience the I am. To return to individual consciousness meant that a choice would have to be made. In truth, the choice made itself, for there was no I to make a decision. The desire to experience the individual self became re-energized on its own. The option of letting it go was present, but there was the return of memory of things yet to be finished in the world. As the sense of I-ness returned, the choices were witnessed, not actively decided. The process of returning was taking place. It could be allowed, or it could be let go. It was allowed, and so the process of return continued. When the next morning dawned, the return was complete, but now with a different sense of personal identity. The truth of the self had been revealed. The responsibility for having chosen to experience life once again as an individual was accepted, yet without being at the effect of a belief in individual existence. In fact, by conscious choosing, there was complete responsibility for it. Experientially, all of this happened autonomously.